We're learning about a place called the desert. Is the desert dry? Yes. Is the desert snowy? No. Is the desert hot during the day? Yes. When would a desert get cold? At night. What plant lives in the desert? Good, a cactus. What animal howls in the desert? Good, a coyote. This is a scorpion, which is another type of desert creature. Scorpions have 8 legs like a spider with pincers in the front. Scorpions' tails are turned up and have a poisonous stinger in the back. Like other small desert creatures, during the day, scorpions like to hide from the heat under rocks. Scorpions like to come out at night in the desert. Maybe we will see a scorpion in our book today. Even though the desert is a very dry place, it does get some rain. When the rain comes, the desert blooms. It doesn't last very long, but the plants and animals take advantage of the opportunity for water. Flowers bloom on plants and pop up through the cracked desert ground. Toads lay eggs in the mud before the water dries up completely. We are continuing to learn more about the desert and the plants and animals that live there. As we read our book, think about the things you have learned. Look for a cactus or other animals we have already mentioned, and listen for something new to you about the desert. A Desert Scrapbook. Dawn to Dusk in the Sonoran Desert by Virginia Wright Friesen. The sun is just coming up over the distant mountains. I pack up my painting gear, watercolors, paper, water bottle, brush and pencil, hat, folding chair. Now I must hurry outside to sketch some birds and animals while they are active in the cool early hours. This summer day promises to be another scorcher. I find a beautiful view and sit quietly, listening and waiting for the animals to get used to my presence. Some people think that our Sonoran Desert is just a dry land of mountains, strange plants, and great sweeping skies. But look very carefully, and you will also see many interesting creatures. Once on a spring day, when I was out painting a prickly pear cactus, a desert tortoise crept up to nibble on a ripe fruit. I quickly sketched it until it crawled away with a red stained mouth. Another time, when I was painting wildflowers, I noticed that a shadow kept passing over my white paper. When I looked up, I was surprised to see a vulture circling right above me. It was so close I could see its wrinkled head and the sunlight through its large wings. It flew off as soon as I waved my arms to show I was not dead and it would not be eating me for lunch. Today, as I sketch some doves, I am startled by a roadrunner bursting from behind a nearby barrel cactus. It catches a zebra-tailed lizard and dashes off, leaving a little cloud of dust. A cactus wren emerges from its nest of twigs and dry grasses in a jumping cholla. I draw many studies of the nest and the mother wren as she flies back and forth with beetle larvae for her babies. The sun is getting higher and the day is getting hotter. Most of the animals are now resting in cooler, shady places to escape the broiling heat. They will not come out until the cool of evening and the cover of darkness. A tarantula waits until nightfall in its cool underground tunnel. A desert pack rat is asleep, curled up deep inside its messy mound of cactus, joints, sticks, leaves, bark, and rocks. A desert scorpion hides under a rock, its babies clustered safely on its back. A black-tailed jackrabbit rests in a shallow hole it has dug in the shade of a mesquite tree. An elf owl sleeps in a hole in a saguaro. A kangaroo rat lies asleep, curled up all day in its deep burrow. They never need to drink water, but get all the moisture they need from seeds and plants gathered at night. A western diamondback rattlesnake stays cool in the abandoned hole of an antelope squirrel. The creamy white flowers of the saguaros have finished blooming for this year, and now the fruit begins to ripen. It is feasted upon by many desert animals, insects, and birds. The Gila woodpecker has a nest in the hole it has pecked in the giant cactus. I rest in the shade of a palo verde tree and look at some seeds and pods I've collected. Above me, a curve-billed thrasher cools itself by widely opening its beak. This story happened a few years ago. I was sitting on the hot ground painting a mountain view when I noticed a slight movement under a bush. My eyes focused on a huge rattlesnake, coiled and perfectly camouflaged, next to my foot. I eased back, trembling, and as the snake slowly moved away, I saw a large lump in its middle. Luckily for me, it must have just eaten a cottontail. Thunder grumbles in the distance, and I notice the air is heavier. Maybe today will bring the first rain of the summer monsoons. The dry stalks of the ocotillo wave in the hot wind, welcoming the coming storm. I head for my home, looking down as I always do when I walk in the desert, careful not to brush against a spiny cactus or twist an ankle on the loose rock. I drink a cool lemonade in my studio, which is in an old water tower at the house. The long-awaited rain begins to pour from the clouds, drenching the parched ground. The shallow roots of the saguaros drink up the precious moisture. The cacti will begin to swell with the water they must store through the long droughts. With a great crashing of thunder, lightning strikes the tallest saguaro on the mountain. It will collapse and its skeleton will stand with the wooden ribs reaching to the sky like fingers. But the fallen cactus will provide shelter and food for many insects and small animals. I stay inside until the storm passes, carefully sorting some of the cactus spines I have collected. I try to remember some of the patterns I have seen in the desert. Before, I love to come outside right after a rain has freshened the air and settled the dust. I walk to the dry arroyo near my house and hear a roaring sound. After, suddenly, the arroyo is filled with churning water. So much rain falls in such a short time, it cannot all soak into the baked earth. The water collects in many stream beds in the mountains and becomes a muddy, roaring flash flood in the valleys. Don't ever camp in an arroyo. By evening, the spadefoot toads that have buried deep underground all year have dug up to the surface. They croak and sing and lay eggs in the muddy pools. The eggs must develop into tadpoles and then baby toads before the puddles dry up in a few days. The toads eat many insects in their few days above ground. Then they dig back underground for almost a year to await another rainy season. Once, I saw several garter snakes feasting on a spadefoot tadpole in a puddle. This group trampled all the tomato plants in my garden last night. I sit unseen on the rocks and stretch a herd of javelinas as they eat prickly pear pads and saguaro fruits. They leave a strong, musty scent in the air and deep prints in the soft mud from their small hooves. There is always a glorious sunset after a rainstorm. The pungent smell of the desert creosote bush perfumes the air. I sit on the rocks with my watercolors, trying to capture the warm, glowing light and fiery colors. The desert sky grows dark as I return home. A great horned owl sweeps soundlessly above my head. The air fills with sounds of life after night falls in the desert. Nocturnal creatures creep out of their tunnels and burrows. I hear an elf owl calling from its hole in a saguaro. The toads croak and sing. Coyotes yip and howl. In the studio, I spread out my sketches of these Sonoran desert plants and animals, and the feathers, spines, and seeds I have found. I think maybe I will collect today's work into a scrapbook that will give a feeling of this desert day from dawn to dusk. Outside my tower window, thousands of bright stars pierce the immense blackness of the beautiful night sky. The end. How are a scorpion and a coyote alike? They both like to come out at night in the desert. How is a roadrunner different from a scorpion? Roadrunners have feathers and eat rattlesnakes, and a scorpion doesn't. How is a coyote different from a lizard? Coyotes howl at night and lizards don't.